I went home and I told my wife, I said, listen, why? I said, you're in early childhood. I said, look at what our population needs. There's people that won't take them. Mm-hmm. And I said, they're kids. I said, why can't we get a daycare, and then we will have 25% of, we'll always keep 25% for, kids of color.
Right.
Kids with special needs, and even indigent. We'll have an indigent component. Mm-hmm. And she said, honey, that's a great idea. I love it. She said, we have $200 in our checking account. If you can figure out how to get a daycare, then we'll do it.
Welcome to Motivational Monday and conversations with me, David Ibarra, and my guest is a good friend and prominent business individual in the state of Utah, Don Salazar. Welcome, Don.
Thank you, David. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, Don, we've got a lot to talk about, so let's jump right in. I would like to hear about your early years in Utah. Tell me about growing up, going to school, and then tell me about what was your first job.
Okay. Well, our family's from northern New Mexico. Mm-hmm. We were ranchers, and so that's how I was reared, so to speak. My father came to Utah because he heard they were hiring vets, and he was, World War II, Korea, and then a couple of times in Vietnam. So he went and moved here, and that's how we established our Utah roots. But every summer and anytime that we were needed, we went back and worked the ranch in New Mexico.
Oh. Now, you settled up in Ogden,
yes,
correct?
Yeah, Roy.
And what did your dad do in Utah that bring him here?
He worked for the Naval Center over in Clearfield, and then he transferred to Hill Air Force Base,
right.
and he ended up being a supervisor and worked there for 38 years.
Right, your dad's quite a character too.
Oh yeah. He passed. This month it's been 3 years,
right.
But yeah, he certainly was a leader, a role model, and someone that our whole family's proud of.
And you know what? In watching from afar, your family absolutely honored your father.
Yeah.
And you could tell they just loved the heck out of their grandfather, their father, and it was a delightful to watch.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, and you're absolutely correct. And we learned a lot from him.
So, Don, you went to high school, college, or?
Yes, I went to high school and then college, and then I was coaching. Yeah, I was coaching in college, the collegiate level, and then I was on my way to interview back east for a position, and it just so happened my father got a little ill, and I'd been gone all through my college years. And
where did you go to college?
I went to Rick's and then up to Oregon. So
okay.
Yeah,
uh-huh.
So in the Northwest, I really liked it there. So he got ill and was hospitalized. It was pretty serious, and I said, I've been gone long enough. I'm staying home. I'm going to be around Dad and Mom, and it was the best. It was the best thing I ever did.
So you graduated in what field? What was your expertise?
Yeah, I had two majors. I bachelor's in political science and cultural anthropology, and then a minor in history. My plan was that I was going to be a history teacher and a high school football coach. That
Now,
was
I didn't know that you were into coaching, and I've known you a long time, Don, and so you were a football player in high school at least.
Oh yeah, in college.
Was that right? What position did you play?
Running back. Yeah.
Oh man, well I was running back too.
Yeah, well, so we take a lot of hits. Maybe that's why we're both so crazy.
Yeah. I'm sure that you and I were the same. We gave a lot of hits.
That was sort of the way we lived. But
so, what was your first professional occupation that wasn't a part-time? That this was a career move?
My plan was to teach school, but in the meantime, I had a friend, and he said, "Listen, I've got a great job, and we're hiring. Do you want to come and try it?" And I said, "Well, what is it?" And he said, "It's working at the State Industrial School with juveniles." And I said, "Like lockup?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I don't." He said, "Just come and." He said, "Listen, we were, young and dumb, and he said, "Listen, you won't believe this job. You can work 5 to 11. You come to work, and you can take the kids, and you can go to the gym every day." And he said, "And this is the topper. They feed you. They feed you." And I said, "Wow, are you kidding? And you don't have to pay for it?" He goes, "No." I'm thinking, so we can spend all day playing golf and messing around, go to work at 5, go to the gym, and they feed you? I said, "Wow, I'm in, yeah." So I went there, and, it was a funny thing. They said, "Okay, well, come here at 3. Your shift starts at 5, so we can kind of show you around." And they really didn't show me around much, but I started talking to the kids, and it was, and
now, how old were these kids? And I'm assuming it's
18
boys.
And younger. Yeah, young, boys.
So these are kids that made bad decisions and got locked up.
Right.
Okay.
And for a myriad of things. Some were in there for serious, and some were just kids that didn't go to school. So it was
something tells me you right away got addicted to helping the kids.
Oh, I was hooked from the get-go, and I started talking to them, and just gravitated right to them. It's not a job everyone can do. And it was funny because they left. I'm here. I've had 2 hours of orientation, and that's it. And now I'm working alone, which, they said, "Oh, you'll never work alone." The first day on the job. So the kids were telling me what to do. They're saying, "Oh, we got to line up and go to eat." And I said, "All right." And they said, "Oh, you got to call them on the radio." And the very first thing, I'm lining them up, and then right out of the gate, here's a big kid.
Right.
And he's leaning against the door. And I said, "Hey, we're going to go eat. Come on, let's go." And he goes, "You don't tell me what to, know what."
Perfect.
Before he knew it, I had him on the ground. I didn't know. I mean, just had him on the ground. And he said, no, it's good. It's good. Hey, that's all it took. From then on, I had the respect. And 20 years later, I finally left that place. But
that some of those moves probably came from your neighborhood in
Ogden. Well, I mean, that's what you'd do. You'd go to New Mexico, and you'd fight all your older cousins, see how tough you'd gotten over the year. But that's just the way they thought. But I'd been playing football and coaching, and so I was in shape, but loved the deal. And the thing that was interesting to me is I thought, not everybody can do this job, and I can do some good work with especially our population, because half the kids in there were Hispanic.
Yeah.
And so I kind of understood them, and it was a nice gig. It was
how long did you stay working with our youth?
20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. That's what was funny is, we're working, and then Janet's early childhood, she was early childhood, and so she was running some daycares, and she was running daycares, and I'm working at as a parole officer at the time then, and it just so happened I had a kid that was coming out of secure, okay, and his mom was getting out of jail, and his dad was getting out of prison, all in the same month.
Wow.
How often does that happen? So the kid had worked his butt off, caught up 3 years in school, was getting out. So typically I'd sit with them and I'd say, okay, what's your dream? I'm going to the parole board. We're going to, and
You're right.
What's your dream? And he said, my family, in my whole life that I can remember, has never been together. And that's what I'd like. And I said, okay, so I'm trying to figure it out. And so I got to go see the old man, right? I got to go see him. So I went to the prison, and I'm saying, listen, here's what your son wants. I said, he's worked his butt off. So that's why I'm here. And he said, okay. And he said, I'm in. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. You have to, there's some conditions. I said, you've knocked the mom around, you knocked the kids around. I said, you got to get some counseling. I said, I'll arrange it, but you got to have your anger management stuff and the family counseling. That's just part of the gig, and you have to agree to it. And he said, I'm in. And I'm saying, no, wait. You think about it, and then think about this. I'm going to go to your parole officer, and I'm going to tell him, you don't follow through on these things, we're going to violate your parole and send you back. I said, no. And I said, you think about it. I'll give him permission for you to call me. And so anyway, I said, you think about a week. He said, yeah, I'm good. And I said, okay. The mom was easy. She was in jail for she'd had one of her nephews or something in the house. He was on the run, and they picked her up and got her for, just craziness. So anyway, got it. So I went to my wife. Well, the thing is, they had 3 young ones.
Right.
And they were different family members. And I said, okay, well, let's get them together. I went to my wife. I said, your early childhood. I said, what about these kids? She goes, oh, Don, the daycares love that. They love that. And they're state-assisted kids, which is really good, And
right.
I said, okay. So I went to the first daycare, and I said, hey, listen, I got these 3 kids. Oh, 3 kids? Good. And I said, they're on state assistance. And, we don't do those. And I said, okay, I'm fine with that. I went to another one. The first thing I said, hey, I have 3 kids. They're on state assistance. Oh,
right.
We love state assistance.
Perfect.
So, so I got the plan's all good. I'm going to have them.
Isn't it interesting? All of us have different people that have touched our lives. And I can remember growing up, grew up in foster care. Right. And some that don't think that you can hear them. I remember a 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Anderson, telling my foster parents, he just isn't any good. He's just not any good. And then you hear another person saying, every kid is good. You just got to connect. You just have to connect. And it's those like you are the individuals that should be working with our youth that have lost their way to help them find back their path, because everybody loses their way now and then. Certainly not to the degree that some end up taking a summer or a year and happen to have some correctional guidance like you gave. But tell me how, and I'm glad you were there. So while you were a parole officer for 20 years, tell me about your daycare centers,
Okay.
and you were working in that a little bit. I understand doing maintenance and fixing the buildings.
This is the story goes right into that direction.
Perfect.
So I go to the. So Janet says, well, you can't just put them in there. You have to, get their file and what they like, their, immunization rate. I said, okay, so will you help me? So she puts it all together. I go and I take the records with their pictures and everything, and I drop them off at the daycare, and I'd been working with them. And all of a sudden, here comes the director of this daycare, and she's running out. A rather rotund lady, and catches me. She's running out to the parking lot, and I see her. So I thought she's going to come and give me a hug and thank me for giving her 3 full-time kids.
Right.
She came and she had the files, the dossiers, and she said, "We're full. We can't take these kids." Mm-hmm. Well, she had seen the picture, and they were the wrong color. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Kind of upset you a little bit, but I said, fine, I'll go. But anyway, long story short, I get them all placed. Everything's good, and everybody. The story ends great, and
a family gathering.
The family, and they had some troubles, but nothing that a normal family didn't have, and they ended up, being very successful as a family. The thing that was interesting about that is I went home and I told my wife, I said, listen, I said, you're in early childhood. I said, look at what our population needs. There's people that won't take them. Mm-hmm. And I said, they're kids. I said, why can't we get a daycare, and then we will have 25% of, we'll always keep 25% for, kids of color. Right. Kids with special needs, and even indigent. Indigent. We'll have an indigent component. Mm-hmm. And she said, honey, that's a great idea. I love it. She said, we have $200 in our checking account. If you can figure out how to get a daycare, then we'll do it. That was in October. April of the next year, we opened our first daycare. Wow. And, and I was proud to say I was the president / yard care guy / plumber / mechanic / chauffeur. Mm-hmm. So we'd work there. I'd go do my gig at, as a parole officer, and that's how we started. And
how long did you do both, Don?
At what age do you wish you had unlocked the principles that lead to success? Where do you think you'd be today if you had learned them as a child? Yes, Our Kids Can is a program developed at Harvard and tested in San Antonio's school systems, designed to give children of all backgrounds the opportunity to plant the seeds for future success, using learning techniques they understand and enjoy. Through engaging animated stories, fun sing-along songs, and interactive games, Yes, Our Kids Can teaches your child the empowering, success-driven principles needed to reach their full potential. Don't miss this opportunity to give your children the future they deserve. Yes, Our Kids Can is available now on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Sign up today and help make your child's dreams a reality.
Probably, well, I'll tell you how nuts it was, David. Okay? Mm-hmm. I was working full-time as a parole officer. I was, the president / yard guy / plumber of Creative Times Day School. And knowing that I'm not a very smart guy, I went back to graduate school to learn how to to do these things, So I went and got my master's doing this all at the same time. So, David, and you do this all the time. Young people coming in all the time saying, how do I succeed?
Right.
And they say, well, I can't do it because I have this and this. Well, I did this doing these things. And so that doesn't cut it too far with me. I still listen to them and I care about them, but come on, it can be done. You just gotta put it up here.
Time. My next question is, what are you willing to give up to get what you want?
Yeah.
Is it what is it?
Yeah.
Is it football games? Is it Saturday basketball games? Is it a bit of gaming? What are you willing to give up to get? And most of them always find a way. Now, I had an interview earlier with Josie Valdez, who was working with the Small Business Administration, I think at the time. And she told me she ran across you, and an unbelievable guy working his tail off. And she told me the story about you doing all of the maintenance and then the two of you discussing a third business. And I believe that was construction. Tell me about that.
Well, because my wife, again, she was thinking, these poor federal employees, the guys that work up on base, when their kids they have to leave the base, come off, and at the time we had another daycare in Roy, and we catered to the guys up at Hillfield. I mean, and she said, these poor guys. She said, why don't we build daycare centers on federal facilities? I said, great. So we started doing that. I mean, that was our focus, and so 1993, it had gotten to the point, and we achieved enough success and enough volume that I said, I guess I need to leave the state and do this full time. So we had the daycares, and then we started CTI Construction. And what was funny? When we first started, to work for the federal government, and that's what we wanted to be, federal contractors, you have to have past performance. And I kept saying to him, well, you won't let us put in for this job because we don't have past performance. Well, how do we get past performance? Well, I'll tell you what, Josie Valdez, she talked and finangled and does what people like Josie Valdez, who I think is a hero in our community, and she's a hero in this state. And so she figured out, we finally were hanging blinds at, I won't even mention the place, but we were hanging blinds, and that got us in the door. And then now we're working at Hillfield, and I saw these trucks all over. I saw these trucks, and they had this Texas firm on it. And I took a picture of one of those trucks, and I put it on my sunscreen on my truck. And I'd look at it every day, and I said, and I told our partners, I said, that's going to be CTI. So 4 years later, there we are.
There you are. Now, CTI grew to be quite a large firm.
Yeah, we are all over the country. Yeah.
Tell me about the level of success you had there.
Well,
I don't think you were considered a small company.
No, well, we had, $100 million contracts. I mean, they were, and we did work all over the United States, from Washington to Alabama we had an office in Texas. We were there for 7 years. I mean, we were doing work all over.
So you were, when I came back to Utah and opened my business, and then you work your tail off. You don't have time to do anything. But when I finally got involved in some community things, your name was always the guy. You were the one that was one of the most successful in our state, if not the most successful Latino in our state, but also kind. And I'll never forget the first time that I met you. I said, boy, what a just down-to-earth individual. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Zions Bank had you on their board.
I'm still on their board.
You're still on your board. And then you went on to get involved in the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, well, I know I'm not mistaken, you got on the board of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber and then became the chair.
I was the chair, yes.
And you did something really unusual while involved. No one would consider at that time to bring the national convention to the state of Utah.
Yeah.
But in the same vein as the Josie Valdez, the Don Salazars, just get it done, you got it done, and that convention occurred here.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't do, that was their rule. We only do tier 1 cities. And First, I talked them into having a board meeting here. We met some pretty influential folks, and they were saying, you being one of them. I mean, yeah. So we're just, and they're saying, let's give it a try.
I can remember. I'm going to put it a little bit to the point. Can you even get a drink in the state of Utah? So we went from place to place to place to show people that really we're the same as any major metropolitan city in the country. Now we have the benefits of the presence of the LDS Church, for sure, the temple grounds that can't be matched by anything. No. We, at that time, had the cleanest city in the world.
And it was we were so welcome. Governor Herbert, I mean, I got him into his office. He met with us, he said, we want this convention here. Met with Scott Anderson, met with the leadership of the LDS Church. And it was, by the time they left, they're saying, we're having it here. And it happened to be the most successful convention they've ever had in the history of their 40-year existence.
Somehow that just rings normal with you, Don. Well, most successful in almost everything that you've done or been involved in. Tell me, you decided to sell out of your construction company? Is that to move into the fourth quarter of your career?
Yeah, there's only so much tread on a tire, David, as you know.
I keep going to get mine retreaded.
Yeah. But I've convinced, and I got this sort of mindset working with troubled kids and their families that have nothing. And, we're facing challenges every day. Their challenges are immense.
Yes.
But the one thing that profession taught me was all people have good in them. And if you search hard enough and you look deeply enough and you look through the facade that sometimes represents even cultures, you'll see it, and it's crystal clear. And so I've maintained that perspective in business, in what I do for the community. And that's why my wife says, "Why are you on all these boards? Why don't you?" I'm saying, because I think I owe it.
Right.
I've been so fortunate.
You're a perfect example of an individual that can do well and good at the same time.
Yeah.
That's good. So you ended up selling, and then you were already had your term had ended with the U.S. Hispanic chair, and you weren't satisfied with just golfing and fishing. You decided that you wanted to do a little bit more. So tell me what you're doing now. Tell me about the organization that you started, and what exactly does it do?
Well,
Help our audience know
yeah,
this.
and I'm humbled and honored to be the chairman of the United States Hispanic Business Council, and their mantra, the sort of the modality they work out of, is commerce. And everything that has to do with commerce, and it's, and in this country, David, there's 4 million Hispanic-owned businesses.
Right.
They're the fastest growing segment in the whole United States, but they're severely overlooked and sometimes forgotten. But so our intention is to be fact-based, to work in the political arena and in the communities and shape our nation's business platform.
And tell me, who is some of your leadership? Because I'd like you to speak a little bit about your director.
Yeah, Javier Palomares. And he comes from through the chamber, corporate America did all that, but he's a firecracker.
Right.
Works tirelessly.
One of the better speakers I've ever heard.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's smooth as silk. That's why when folks ask me to speak, I'm saying, well, that's not really my role as part of being the chairman of the council. We have the spokesman, and I tell him this: that's your job, not mine. Right. I go to the events and I press the flesh, and this. I mean, we have to do that. But when it comes down to eloquence and speaking and knowing what he's talking about.
I got to interrupt right here. I'll tell you one of the things that I noticed about you early on, and most business people don't get this. Their egos won't allow it. It's so important to know what you're absolutely blessed in talent with and what you're not. And to pair yourself with somebody that has the talent that you don't, and for the 2, 3, 4, 5, the group, to use each other's talents as one so they can enter the genius zone, because nobody has all the skills and talents to achieve what they want on their own. Many in business do not get that. And Don, you do.
Well, yeah, and that's, my master's is in organizational management, and I learned early.
Right.
9 heads are better than one, and when you run that modality, it's kind of it's a little bit unnerving, because if we're working together, I have to say, David, this is yours.
Right.
You're going to be autonomous, and you may make mistakes, but we all make mistakes. But that's the way you grow. That's the way we ran CTI. Right. It was a management team-driven company, and we had those guys, and some of the things that would come out of those meetings we'd have every week were unbelievable. Right. And I'm thinking, I had a football coach tell me this. He said, Don, when you step into a coach's meeting and you're the smartest one there, you're in trouble. You better be the dumbest one there, and then maybe you'll win some games.
That's good advice. I tell you, in closing, I want to make a couple of comments. One is that, Don, I've been here for since I was born in Salt Lake City, left and went to school in northern California, and then worked for Marriott throughout Los Angeles and other states, and came back and bought my own restaurant in 1978. But I've been watching you for a long time, and I got to know you, and definitely a close friend of mine. But the thing that I've noticed is your honor and your family, and every one of your kids, you and your wife and family, are an example of what a great American family should be.
Well,
and I'll tell you, that's not exactly normal, Don. and that's normal for you. And I tell you what, I look up to you. You are one of the good guys, smart guys, and great leaders of this country. And the best days for Utah, the best days for the United States, no matter what your political views are ahead of us as long as we're willing to talk to each other.
I agree. And thank you for that, David.
In closing, I wanted to give you a gift, and it's a copy of my new book, Live Ready, Beyond Think and Grow Rich. And thank you, Don, for being on our program today.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure. I promise you that.